Assalamu alaikum and greetings to one and all watching. I am Sheenam, a student of grade 9 here at FutureX Learning, Parraypora, and today I'm in front of you all as a one-day teacher. The topic I'll be covering today revolves around a man we have all heard of. When I use the word dictator, who's the first person that pops up in your mind? Probably none other than Adolf Hitler himself. But when it comes to Adolf Hitler, most of us don't really know the real story of Hitler. We only know the basic details like his anti-Jew propaganda, the name of the Nazi regime, and his dictatorship. How many of us know the actual story of Hitler? Where did he come from? What was his backstory? And how was the Nazi regime able to rise to power in Germany and start World War II in the first place? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be finding out today. First of all, a lot of you might have the misconception that Adolf Hitler was some government official from the start, but that wasn't the case. In fact, at the age of 16, Hitler dropped out from school. Why did he drop out from school? Because he did not see a career in any of the academic subjects that we know today. Instead, his all-time dream was to become an artist. And for many of the Gen Zers watching, you must have heard the story that Hitler was a failed Austrian painter. Well, that is because he was actually a failed Austrian painter. At the age of 18, Hitler went to Vienna. Vienna was the capital of Austria and still is the capital of Austria. And at this age, he gave an entrance exam to join the art school of Austria and become a painter, which again was his dream. However, he failed. And after that, he had to return back to his home place where again his mother died. And after that, he returned to Austria in order to pursue this career in the arts. But then again, he wasn't able to do so. Why was it? Because, well, let's say his painting was not that good, but obviously his dreams were absolutely crushed. Now, in his early 20s, what happened is that Hitler was completely homeless and had no future for himself. In fact, when he was in his early 20s, he used to be a homeless beggar on the streets. He barely made any money, used to live in homeless shelters, and had no future going on from him. So the question arises, how was a homeless man living in the streets of Austria able to become the dictator of Germany? Well, what happened is that when he was living in Austria, it was a multi-ethnic empire. What is a multi-ethnic empire? Basically, it was the empire where there were many ethnicities living of different religions. And one of these ethnicities were the Jewish people. However, despite being a multi-ethnical empire, Austria was completely intolerant of these Jewish people. In fact, the mayor of Austria at the time was a known anti-Semite and he hated these people. And because Hitler had spent so much time living in Austria, he was inspired by these anti-Jew ideas. In fact, his famous ideology involves a kind of hierarchy. Basically, Hitler believed that at the top of the hierarchy were the Aryan Germans. The Aryan Germans were basically the pure Germans, and Hitler believed that these were the superior races. And the lowest of them all were the Jewish people. Hitler was also a very well-known German nationalist because Hitler was born in an area which was near the Austrian and German border. And many of the people who were living in the area still considered themselves to be Germans because at one point this area of Austria was under the German Confederation. And Hitler was a German nationalist. Along with that, he believed that the reason why Germany was failing in so many things was because of these Jewish people. He blamed almost every wrong thing going on in Germany, from the economical crisis to the social and political crisis, on these Jewish people. And thus, what happened is that he hated the multi-ethnical empire of Austria so much that in his early 20s, he went back to Munich in Germany. Why did he go back to Munich in Germany? Because he wanted to avoid doing military service in Austria. At the time, military service was mandatory for all men of age in Austria, and he did not want to do it in a country full of Jewish people. Hence, he went to Munich in Germany to avoid this military service. But the crazy thing is that when he went to Germany, that was the exact time when World War II broke out. World War I broke out. World War One broke out, all of the men in Germany had to go and join the army. And you must think that since Hitler was avoiding his military service in Austria, he must have hated the fact that he had to join the German army in World War One. Except that wasn't the case. In fact, like I mentioned before, Hitler was a German nationalist. And when the World War One happened, he was fully ready to support Germany and Germany's cause in World War One. Why? Because he thought that by serving in the army, he could finally bring some dignity and honor to his country. In World War One, he was a very infamous soldier. He was brave on the battlefield, loyal to his fellow soldiers, and completely supported the idea that Germany was the most superior nation of all. But what happened is that during his time on the battlefield, he got injured. He faced a leg injury and then he had to go back to Germany while World War One was still going on to recover. And when he went back to Germany to recover, meanwhile World War One was still going on, he discovered something that completely shocked and appalled him. The people of Germany at the time, meaning the common civilians, they were completely anti-war. Why were they anti-war? Because due to World War One, Germany was facing many crises, economical crisis, poverty, and so much more. And the civilians of Germany were so sick and tired of the war, they wanted it to completely end so that they could finally stop, dealing with this. They were exhausted, they were starving. And Hitler did not like the fact that the civilians of Germany had turned anti-war because he thought that, due to this war, Germany could finally regain its honor and dignity. So what happened is that after recovering from his leg injury, he returned back to the battlefield. But what happened is that he once again was injured by a British gas attack. And this time, Hitler got temporarily blinded. So once he went back to Germany to recover from this injury on the battlefield, what happened is that Germany was not only defeated, but Germany surrendered. And when Hitler heard the news that Germany had surrendered to the European allies, he was not only shocked, but he felt humiliated. Because in his mind, like I said, Germany was the greatest nation of all time. So seeing the way Germany, accepted their defeat or surrendered to the European allies was a humiliation. And this happened in 1919. And when Hitler heard of this news, he blamed only two groups of people for their surrender. And that was the Jews plus the communists. Now, the question arises, why did he blame these two groups of people for the surrender of Germany? Did they have anything to do with it? No, they absolutely did not. But Hitler, obviously already had a prejudiced mindset against these Jewish people, especially the Jews, more than the communists. And because of that, when Germany surrendered, he blamed the Jews for the defeat of Germany. What happened after that in 1919 came the biggest humiliation for Germany, and that is known as the Treaty of Versailles. What was the Treaty of Versailles? See, this Treaty of Versailles was basically the turning point which absolutely solidified Hitler's hate for the Jews, but also humiliated Germany on a deep level. This Treaty of Versailles was signed on 28th of June in 1919. And what this treaty basically stated was that Germany had to take all of the blame for World War II, meaning anything that happened in World War II, it would be blamed upon Germany. And when, Germany was blamed, they obviously had to pay for World War I in some way. So they had to pay reparations. Reparations, as in they had to pay money to the European countries for starting World War I. Whether or not it was only Germany who was, blamed for this, that stays unclear. But Germany obviously felt bad because they weren't the only ones fighting in the war, but they were the ones being blamed. And they had to pay money to the other European countries. Furthermore, Germany's territories or some areas in Germany were also taken under by other European countries. So what did Germany do when it was faced with this crisis? Because not only was Germany humiliated, but at the same time, they also lost territory, they also lost money. So, in order to, pay the other European allies these reparations, they started printing more money. Now, when they began to print this more money, you must, have this misconception that if a country does not have enough money, why don't they just print more money and get the money? Well, when more money is printed, it doesn't give a country more money, it just decreases the value of the money. So when Germany started to print more money in order to pay the European allies the reparations that they had to pay, what happened is that the value of German marks declined. So for example, at the beginning in 1919, 1 USD was four marks, 4 German marks. Marks was the currency which was in Germany at the time. So 1 USD was worth 4 German marks. But in 1923, 1 USD was equal to 4.2 trillion German marks. Do you see how much the value declined? Because of this, not only were the European allies, completely dissatisfied with Germany, but they felt that Germany was cheating them because obviously by printing more money, their value of their money declined and the money basically meant nothing to them. So what happened is that France, the country of France, was completely dissatisfied and they decided to occupy certain territories of Germany. And when they occupied these certain territories of Germany, what happened is that any resource taken out from those parts of Germany, such as iron, golds, harvest, all of those were taken by France. What did that happen? What did that lead to? That led to poverty and that led to cruelty. Because when the French country had occupied some German territories, not only were they taking all of the resources from those German territories, but they were also being completely cruel to the German population. So now what had to be done? Obviously, the German people and the German government, all of them were, very humiliated by this Treaty of Versailles and they were humiliated by the other European allies. At the same time, they couldn't ask another country for help because their greatest and, most trusted ally was Austria-Hungary. And according to the Treaty of Versailles, Germany and Austria could not make an alliance. Furthermore, according to this Treaty of Versailles, the number of men who were supposed to be in the German army was to be reduced to 100,000, which seems like a big number, but for Germany that was quite small. Because of this, many men were left unemployed as well, because now the only number of men that German army could keep was 100,000. So what did Germany do? And how did this all connect to Hitler? Well, Hitler was currently, he was a soldier during World War I, right? So after the number of soldiers was to be reduced to 100,000, what happened is that Hitler was not completely dismissed from the army. Instead, Hitler was kept as a spy slash informant for the army. What was his job? Basically, Hitler had to, infiltrate certain communist and Jewish parties and take out the information from them and submit it to the army instead of being a soldier. One of these parties that Hitler infiltrated was the German Workers' Party. The German Workers' Party was rumored to be a communist party, and all of Germany was currently blaming the communists and the Jews for starting World War I and also for the defeat of Germany. So when Hitler infiltrated this German Workers' Party, he thought that this would be a communist party, but it was not. Instead, it was a far right party. And this far right party was anti-Jew and anti-communist. And they were completely humiliated and felt that Germany had been cheated in World War I. Why? Due to the Treaty of Versailles. And when Hitler joined this party, he abandoned his post in the military as their spy slash informant and instead joined this German's Worker Party. And Hitler was always known as a wonderful speaker. And because this party was anti-Jew and anti-communist, he quickly rose up the ranks of this party and became the leader of this party. When Hitler became the leader of the German Workers' Party, he decided that this party needed a reform. And what was that reform? He renamed the German Workers' Party into the National Socialist German Party. The National Social German Party is also what we know as today as the Nazis. This is where the Nazi Party was formed and Hitler was at the head of it. So what did the Nazis demand? When Hitler became the leader of the Nazi Party, Hitler promised the people of the party and also the other people who were not a part of the party yet that he's going to do three things. First of all, he is going to reclaim the lost territories that Germany had lost. You know how I said that certain territories of Germany were now under France and other European allies? Well, Hitler promised the people that he will reclaim those German territories and bring them back to Germany. Another thing that he promised was that the citizenship of Jews, meaning the Jewish people, would be revoked if he were to become the leader of Germany. And the third thing that Hitler promised was that he is going to end the Treaty of Versailles. Because when it comes down to it, it was the Treaty of Versailles which caused all the humiliation for Germany. All the lost territories, all the lost revenue, the economical crisis, all happened because of this treaty. So these three things were promised by Hitler to the German people and also to the party members. And like other parties, other political parties at the time, the Nazis had their own military department, known as the Storm Detachment or the SA. This military department was used to terrorize people. Anybody who spoke up against the Nazis were killed or beaten by this SA or this military department. And anybody, any any opposing party, anybody who spoke against the Nazis, any journalists were all terrorized by this military department, because of which Hitler was able to, keep his power in a momentum. What happened after that? Well, Germany was currently facing an economical crisis because, once again, they were mostly using their money to pay the European allies due to the Treaty of Versailles, but also because all of the economical resources that were coming out of Germany were also being taken by France. So people were absolutely drowning in poverty. And Hitler thought that this would be the perfect time to start a revolution. So in 1923, Hitler and the Nazis decided to perform a revolution. And in this revolution, they basically marched the streets of Berlin and they challenged the government directly, saying that it was because of the democratic government and their support for, their secret support for the Jews and communists that Germany was failing and being humiliated. Hitler thought that this rebellion would work in 1923, yet it did not. And Hitler was imprisoned. Hitler spent 9 months in jail, even though he was given the sentence of 5 years. After coming out of jail, what happened is that Hitler decided that he is going to join the elections because Germany at the time was a democratic government. So when he went to the elections, at first he lost. But when the year of 1933 came, Nazis were supposed to win because the people of Germany were already supporting the Nazis because like I said, Hitler was promising the people that he is going to bring back the glory of old Germany, undo the Treaty of Versailles, and also give back Germany their territories and their political resources. So the people were already supporting the Nazis, but somehow in 1933 Hitler was not able to win the elections. Instead, it was a World War I general named by Paul. So, when Paul won the elections in 1933, what happened is that, Hitler was humiliated because obviously he thought the Nazis would win. But somehow he was able to convince this prime minister that he should become the chancellor. The chancellor at the time in German government was a vice president of sorts. And he demanded that Paul make him the Chancellor of Germany. And here's where the scheme of Hitler came. In 1933, almost immediately after winning the elections, Paul died. And now the government of Germany had basically no state or figurehead at the time. So Hitler passed an act known as the Enabling Act. And in this Enabling Act, he demanded that since there is no prime minister right now, he should be given the authority to make any decision he wanted without the repercussion of anybody. And hence, even though he was only a chancellor, he was able to, take control of all of Germany and became a dictator. So I hope you understood this topic and enjoyed it. Please give a thumbs up, and that's all from my side.